Hi everyone, my name is Nitya and you are at my Flosstube channel, Daybreak Stitchery. It's almost the end of the month and I will be very soon doing my cross stitch. So this is a cross stitch channel and I usually at the end of the month do a recap on what I've been stitching on during the month, and that's coming this weekend. I'm making that, but I wanted to do a little extra video today because I finished a project that I feel really proud of, and it's going to take a lot of time to talk about it. And I already have a lot of other things that I'm going to talk about in my usual monthly video. So I'm doing a little special today, and this is about cross-stitch journals because I made a cross-stitch journal, and it incorporates some other things too. So I'm just gonna, I think what I will do here is I'm going to flip through the pages right now. I'm not going to say anything about materials or what's in it right away. I'm just going to flip through and show you the pages. That way, if you're just curious and you want to hang around for a couple of minutes and just see what's in there, you could do that. And then if you're interested in hearing more about why I made it, what's inside it, what materials I used, and all that, you can stick around and I'll go through page by page and walk through everything. Okay, I think we're going to get to it. So this is the cover. It's blank. I might add something sometime. Right now it doesn't have anything on it. Then when I open it, this is the first page. That's a watercolor that I painted. The next page has up here, this is a watercolor with some ink drawings of some bees and some spots. And then there's some writing on here. It's the DMC colors that I used to stitch some different smalls that I put into this journal. And like I said, you're probably already wondering about some materials and things that I used. I'm going to go through that on the second time through. We're just going to make this a quick walkthrough to start with. That's a cutout from a piece of scrapbook paper. This is an index card that has a rubber stamp of some leaves on it. And then when I turn the page, the next part looks like this. This up here is a watercolor that I did. These are cutouts from a scrapbook paper. This is a journal block that I wrote, and then this right here, let me see if I can get it to focus. That's an rubber stamp that I stamped on this picture of a person looking over their balcony and looking at a city view. That was stamped on. I have a little bit of writing here. I used washi tapes here to make these. These are coming off already. Some washi tapes. I have a small stitched piece here. This is another scrapbook paper cutout here. I did just some like ink doodles, this middle thing here. And then this is a watercolor that I did here. Another watercolor up top here. This is all these, this one and this one with the leaves on it. Those were both done on, well, let me not jump ahead. I won't talk about materials yet. Journal block, cutouts from scrapbook paper. This is washi tape right here. And then another watercolor right here with some ink doodles on it. A couple of stitched items here. And then some scrapbook paper here and more washi tape here. And some stuff written down here. And then a couple more journal blocks. This is a cutout from a scrapbook paper. This is watercolored by me. Washi tapes here. This is washi tape here, the Seek Joy. That's a washi tape. Does it show up? I think you're seeing it, right? That it says Seek Joy on it. This big floral, that's a watercolor by me. It's on a backdrop of washi tape, a whole bunch of washi tapes that are stuck down behind it. We've got a stitched piece up here, a little small. Journal, little journaling, a list, a background of some washi tapes, and then another cutout from a piece of scrapbook paper. Another journal, little block here, little cross stitch, small. An ink thing here, just a pen. It's an affirmation. This one says, "I have a choice and I choose joy. I'm finding my own happiness." That's what it says here. And then washi tape down here. And then this is a watercolor by me. I've got a journal block, a couple journal blocks up here and over here. More washi tapes in the back, these kind of like background things here. A journal, no, a scrapbook paper here cut out. Some stuff written in ink up top. And then a stitched, oh, I'm so glad you're seeing, are you seeing the colors and the variegated thread on this? This is just like my new favorite thing. I'll tell you about that when I go through materials. That is watercolored by me, watercolor painted. These are all washi tapes in the background. It's just like stuck in rows. And then there's an affirmation written up top. And then washi tape background, a stitched piece right here. I'll show that a little bit closer. And then some watercolor by me. And then this is, am I holding it up right? No. That's watercolored by me. And that's it. That goes to the back cover, and I didn't put anything on the back cover. I just left it blank. So that's my first cross stitch journal, and I just got so excited about doing it that I wanted to show it to you. And I want to tell you more about it now. So if that's all you wanted to see, that was the quick walkthrough. But I think I'm going to go through each part and just show you what I used and give you some ideas in case you want to do one. I 100% recommend that you try making a little cross stitch journal. And the kicker for me, the thing that kind of really convinced me to do it is when I found this. You don't have to have this very same object. It's a chipboard journal from Michaels. This was only about $4. And it was seeing this that convinced me that I could do it, because see how many there are, besides the cover, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are only 6 pages in this, because I've always had an idea of wanting to do a cross stitch journal, but everything I look at is notebooks and they all have, like 50 pages or more. And I just kept thinking to myself, I'm never going to fill a whole journal. I mean, maybe I will, but it will take me years to do it. And I might never come back to it. It'll be an unfinished project. But seeing so few pages, that gave me the idea that I thought, okay, like it doesn't have to be a million pages. I could just do a few. I could really quick gather some things together. I stitched the items for this. They're all smalls. I stitched them in a weekend and put this together in one weekend, stitching and assembling everything and putting it together. And if you're kind of a like paper product hoarder like me, you probably have a lot of things you can use to put something like this together. So let's talk about it a little bit. Okay, so I made mine. I found the chipboard journal. If you don't have a chipboard, I bet you could use like cereal boxes or cracker boxes. You could use any kind of cardboard. Chipboard is really sturdy. Like it's not bending really much right now. It's just super sturdy, like packed cardboard. But you don't have to have that. You could have, see, look at how it's held together. It's just binder rings and a hole punch. So you could do that with cereal boxes or anything, basically. In the future, I have one more of these, but in the future, if I feel like I could make my own, if I couldn't find these again. If you're interested in this particular item, I'll link it below. I'll link that, and plus I'll make a little materials list in the description down below in case you're interested in kind of finding any of this stuff. Okay, so I found the book, and that kind of planted in my head, oh yeah, okay, I can make a very small cross stitch journal. And then I had been watching Kim cataloging my stitches, and in her last video, she had shown all her beautiful, she has like amazing finishes and stitches really beautiful items, but she also did a little paper crafting in the last video. She was scrapbooking, and I used to do that too, like ages ago, a long, long time ago. I used to make like travel scrapbooks and stuff. And watching her just made me think, oh yeah, I enjoy putting paper. Like I like putting paper materials together, and I would love to combine it with cross stitch. And then the other thing is, leading into Thanksgiving weekend, I have like a lot of different kinds of feelings that come with having large family, like being around my large family. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a good time for me to journal about it. Just get me in a positive mindset. No matter what difficult conversations come about, I myself will feel like strong and positive and optimistic to be ready to handle, anything. I mean, they don't need to be handled, but you know what I mean? Sometimes family gatherings aren't, easy peasy. So what I did was I pulled out whatever I could think of. I wanted it to be bright and colorful and positive. So I pulled out like my watercolors that were bright. Not all of my watercolors are bright, but I pulled out the ones with bright colors because I knew I wanted to put that in here. I wanted to feel joy when I opened this up. I also went to, I wrote it down. Well, you can Google journal prompts. There are tons and tons and tons of websites where you can find prompts for writing journals, reflective kind of journal writing. So I found mine at holisticwellnesspractice.com. I'll link it below. They're basic. I think they look like a clinic of some kind. Anyway, they had an article on their blog with free journal prompts and then also affirmations, like positive statements you can kind of repeat to yourself to stay positive. I really like that. So that's what I used for like these journal prompts. There was like a question and then I wrote about it a little bit. I did all those journal prompts. I just sat for a morning with my cup of coffee and I did like on the back of index cards. That's what this is. I stamped something on them with a rubber stamp and then I wrote my journal entries. So I had several of them that I did, and I just knew I was going to cut them up and put them in to this cross stitch journal. Okay, let me be a little bit more orderly about it. So the watercolor, if you don't have to be artistic to do this. You don't have to have any art skills. I happen to have watercolors because this was my pandemic activity. When I had extra time, like from not commuting, when I was working at home and things like that, I really tried to do a lot of watercolor practice because I was trying to teach myself. So I basically, when we packed to move this year, I just had like a box of my exercises, different projects I had done that were just sitting there. I wasn't doing anything with them. So when I knew last weekend when I was working on this, I just said, I'm going to look for any of my brightly colored practice watercolors, and I'm just going to pull them up. They're going in this journal now. We're going to use them. You notice that it's got kind of a shine. I don't know if you're seeing like a glare, on those. That's because I used on all of my watercolor pieces in this, like I'll show it, like even on, I don't know if you're seeing the glare on that one necessarily. On this little one, there is a glare. So watercolor is not permanent. So if someone like me with warm hands is flipping through a journal and it has watercolor in it, it can come up, the color can come off on your hands. It can smudge. So I used Self Laminating paper, like sheets basically, and I laminated these. Self Laminating sheets are awesome. I did not know about them until I researched like how to protect my watercolors. And basically it's 2 sheets of plastic. One sheet of plastic, you put your work on that. The second sheet of plastic is all adhesive. So you're literally laminating the thing yourself. And then you cut around it just like you would with anything else laminated. So I laminated my watercolors so that they wouldn't like spread or smear or get over anything else. So I don't know what else you could, I don't know what else you could do with self-laminating sheets. Like if you have old family photos, like if you were doing a tribute to your ancestors, or I don't know, had photos or old documents and things like that, those might be good to laminate and protect them underneath that. This scrapbook, this cutout that this picture, this envelope, that comes from a scrapbook page. So the day that I got this chipboard journal from Michael's, that's one of our big craft stores here, chain craft store, I was looking at scrapbook paper and I saw this. It was basically the big scrapbook paper comes in different sizes, but one of the sizes is 12 inch by 12 inch, like a big square, because a lot of scrapbook albums come in that size. So I saw these sheets and I just loved them, like these bright, colorful envelopes. And the nice thing so they came basically like 4 of these in a row and then 4 high. So it was a grid of 16 of these, all different colors on one paper. So 4, 4, 4, 4. It was a double-sided paper. So when you turn the page, you get this really pretty tile pattern on the back. And right away I don't always buy scrapbook papers, but right away when I saw this, I thought I could definitely use this, because basically you can cut out each one and you're getting all these different colorful motifs out of just one piece of paper. So if you're really careful, I like scrapbook papers that have like all these motifs like this, because you can cut around them. You can cut like, there's another page I got that I really liked too. See these little house plants, like that house plant? I got a paper that was filled with all those different house plants. And I thought right away, oh, that's perfect. I can cut those out and put them in places where I have like empty, like this would have been just an empty space. So I was able to put that there to add a little, you know, some pops of color. The stitching. Let's talk about the stitching, because most of you are cross stitchers. You're here for the stitching. Okay, so I went through my PDF files of patterns, and I was just thinking to myself, what am I not going to stitch? Basically, like, there's got to be a piece here that I've picked up somewhere. I bought a pattern. It's not on my radar to stitch. I have no plans to stitch it in 2020. Let me take a look. And I had a Quaker pattern from 2x2 Stitch Art on Etsy. And it's like a big square pattern. I'll see if I can put a picture up here of what it, like the finished one looks like. But I was looking at it and I thought, I have no plans to stitch this. I have this pattern. It had a whole bunch of individual motifs, like Quakery motifs. So I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I had a small, I don't know, are you seeing how the fabric is kind of purpley? Let me show you a larger motif and maybe it'll show up. I'll show you that. My favorite, this is my favorite motif from this. So see how it's kind of purpley in the back? I had a small, it's Da Vinci. It's Picture This Plus Da Vinci. It's an 18 count. And so I had a small piece of this from 123 Stitch. It was like, you know, the smallest size you can get. It's like 8.5 by 12. And when I received it, I thought the picture showed that it was more gray. So I was going to do some Halloween stitching on it. And when it came, it was this bright purple. Well, like a lilac, lavender purple. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. So I just kind of threw it in my stash. Well, then when I was looking for bright colors to stitch smalls on, I thought this is perfect. And I only used about a half, like really about 4-inch, like a 4-inch by 8-inch piece of that. And I stitched however many, I think I want to say I stitched 9 motifs from that 2x2 Stitch Art. And it took me the better part of a weekend. It took me like a day and a half, basically, to do the smalls. And then it took me another 3 hours to put the journal together. So see how they just kind of work? I chose some random bright colors from my DMC box that they weren't kitted up with anything. And I thought, well, might as well use them in here. This page doesn't have stitching, but like these, see? So these were all motifs in that same pattern. So what a great way to use a pattern if you know you're not going to get to a whole pattern. You could still take parts of it that you like and kind of repurpose them for something like this. And I mean, my journal is about, you know, positivity and mindset. Yours could be about anything. And like small stitch pieces, they would make a good decoration for any, it could be a travel album or, you know, a log of books that you enjoy reading, you know, a tribute to books you enjoy reading or anything. You could be about anything. And like a stitched small will be a perfect companion to basically anything you're talking about in your journal. So, so anyway, that's what I did. And I was so glad I did that because now I've worked on a piece. It's not a finished, like a whole finished one samplery kind of piece, but I used a lot of motifs from it. And I'm really happy with how each of them turned out. So that's where the stitching comes from. And then I also used rubber stamps. That's what this is here. This is an index card. And for all the stamping, let me show you. I stamped this. I showed you that person in the balcony window. That's a rubber stamp. Let me see if I have another. Oh yeah, like basically on all my journaling prompts, I stamped. Like there's some flowers stamped onto, and stamps I just get from everywhere. A lot of them come from Etsy. I get some, I keep an eye at our big craft stores like Michael's and Joann. I like to go at Michael's, especially at the back of the store. They have like they just dump all their clearance items back there. So if I'm in there, I just go look and see what's there. And if there's something interesting there, I'll go look, I'll pick that up. That's a rubber stamp there on this tree with this person sitting underneath it. So the stamping, these leaves, Those are stamps, these green leaves up here. So the stamping I used, this is the ink that I use, the ink pad, this Ranger brand. The brand doesn't really matter, but what matters for me, because I used to watercolor over stamps or write next to stamping. And I'm always worried with things like that about the smudging. My hands are usually really, really warm. So I'm always worried about smearing and smudging. So this ink is permanent and waterproof. So there's no risk of, like, if I was journaling and, you know, my hand ran against it or something, there was no risk of the actual ink stamp smearing, which is what I wanted. I wanted that. So if you can grab yourself some permanent ink pad, that's good. And I only have 2 colors of this, and I use them for everything, basically. This one, I have this, and I have like a purpley blue. I'll show you what it was. Like this one that was in the flowers. Those are basically the only 2 colors I have. So just pick a couple. I always kind of use the same colors anyway. So that's what I recommend for ink stamps. And then what else can I show you? This was a watercolor. I was just looking at this. This turned out pretty okay. This watercolor, during the pandemic, I had on our dining table, I had set out just a little yogurt jar, like an empty, a cleaned out one, and a brush, and like a set of my watercolors, and then a stack of note cards. These are index cards. And index cards are actually, they're not really good for watercolor because they're not thick paper. You need thick paper to absorb the water. But anyway, I just left them on the table because if I ever had like a 10-minute or 20-minute kind of chunk of time, I would just sit at the table and everything would be right there. And I'd just try something. I'd try an exercise. I'd grab an index card and just paint something. So that's what this is. This pink one, that's what that is. That my little boat that I did, that probably took longer actually. This little boat that I did. That's from a tutorial. This one and my tent at the beginning are from a tutorial by Drawing Pigment. I can't remember if I mentioned them before on Instagram. But anyway, so I had all these little exercises that I had done on index cards. If you're not an artistic person, you know where else you could go for artwork to put in a journal? Actually, there's tons of places you can go. Thrift store, you can look at books, cut out pictures from books or magazines or note cards. You could save greeting cards and use those motifs. You could save gift wrap and cut around motifs on gift wrap. Fabric at the thrift store, like you could very easily just glue down a piece of fabric to be your backdrop in a journal. Packaging of items, like if you receive candles that come in a box or lotions, anything basically that has pretty like designs on it, you could cut that out and use that. So you don't have to necessarily, I don't want you to get discouraged if you haven't, like you don't have art pieces to put in it. I think there's still a lot of potential for pretty items to put in a journal. You know, I just happen to have those things and I needed a place to put them, so they went in here. Okay, what else can I show you? Oh, I can show you the washi tapes. You probably already, maybe you already know about washi tapes or you already use them. So washi tapes are kind of like a masking tape. Did I bring one? They come in a roll like this. And they're Japanese. I mean, the original idea is Japanese now. They're probably produced here in the US too. And they're not plastic. They're made from a plant. I think they're made from like bushes or something. They're not paper like from trees. They come from another plant. And they have an adhesive. They're very similar, I would say, to masking tape. And because they come with pretty patterns on them, and also I think they're heat proof. I don't know if they're waterproof. So for example, you could decorate actual stuff like items. People wrap this on actual item like objects and things to decorate them. So I just snag these wherever, like your craft store will have some of these, and you can look online too for washi. Washi means something in Japanese. I think shi is paper. I'll have to look that up and see. But anyway, those are nice because you can just add little patches of stuff like That's what this was. Washi tape. This is washi tape. Basically, before I glued anything down on any page, I looked for blank spaces, like where would there be nothing showing? And I tried to think of things that I could put. Like, see, this is behind, just because I didn't want excessive brown kind of cardboard showing there. So I really just used it to patch up, do like a pretty way to patch up empty spaces. This, I put washi tape all the way around, and then I put something contrasting on top of it. So it just adds a little something extra to look at if you're making a journal. It would be really pretty, for example, if you put washi tape down on a whole page and then put stitching on top of it. It would look nice. That's kind of what I did here. That's stitching, and it's on tap. All these right here, these are all washi tapes that are just, they're put together, taped on in rows with alternating designs on them. So that's what's going on here too. I have so many of these kinds of things. These are not even like, these are brush exercises from watercolors. So a lot of, before you paint something, you do a lot of like muscle memory and control work. So you put paint on your brush and then you do something very repetitive and you try to see, like on this, for example, the exercise was to try to see how many concentric circles you could paint and how close could you get them to one another without having them touch. So mine is like pretty pitiful because there's a lot of white gaps in between, but I still think it's kind of pretty. So I saved, like, even that's a practice exercise. It's not even a real thing, but I just saved it. This is a practice exercise because that's where you practice, like you start with one color. So you start with pink and then you add a little bit of another color and you paint that. You add a little bit of another color until you get through the whole color grid, basically transitioning from one to another. This is an exercise, brush exercise, this pink here, trying to paint bars and see how close one to the other can you get without having them like run into each other. So when you look back on them after a while, they look kind of pretty. So you just save them. So how did I attach everything? Well, the washi tapes are adhesive, so those stick, and everything else, I used a couple different things to attach. So for the stitched pieces, like let's say for this stitched piece right here, I used Fabric Fusion, Aleene's Fabric Fusion. This is like a pretty tiny, this is a 2 fluid ounce bottle that you can just get at the craft store. And it has sharp-ish point on it. So I would just dab a little bit, but I would use the point to rub it in a little bit and make it like a thin layer, a good coverage, but a thin layer that I would put directly onto the journal. And then I would push my fabric onto it. And I'm very happy with it. It dries clear. So sometimes, like in these gaps where there's no stitching, some of the glue, it would look wet, like it had been wet, but it dries clear and everything. So it doesn't look like anything now. Is covering it up. And then for all of the watercolors and the journal blocks, so basically everything else that attached, I could have used the glue. I think it would have been fine, but I like to use, I still have, these are so old because they're back from when I used to do more regular scrapbooking. It's these Duck Easy Stick adhesives. They're permanent. It's whatever you're attaching, it gets permanently attached. But let me show you what it looks like. So it's a roller like this. There's a cap on it. And then I'll take a couple off and I'll try to show you. Let me see if they'll come off. I don't know if I can get one off, but basically it's like these little rectangles of tape. I don't know if you can, if I hold it up close, can you see? You won't be able to see it, but it's basically these little tiny bars of tape and they separate. So you can, hang on, I'm going to try to see if I can get one on my journal. But you won't be able to see it because it'll be clear. Do you see that? So that's basically made up of bars, like individual bars of adhesive. So you can use as little or as much as you want. Like if you have something huge, I can show you, it's going to be stuck there. if you have something huge like my big birds, my bird at the end, I put a lot of that stuff on the back of this to make sure that the whole thing sticks down. But if you have something really small, like my little watercolor sample here, that doesn't take as much. You can put, I just put like a little bit on each corner, and that was enough to stick it down. All of the scrapbook, like these scrapbook papers that I cut out, all that I attached with this duck stuff. So I like it. I would keep using that. I think it's where it's doing the thing so far. Nothing's fallen out, which I thought would happen on this video, so that's good. And then the last thing I'll show you is for any of the ink stuff, you can use any pen you've got. Use a ballpoint pen, use whatever you've got. I will show you what I used. I used these Micron pens. They come in different tips. So like here, it's a pretty thin one. This is a 03, and that's mostly what I used, that tip. I used it for the journaling. I used it to write in the affirmations, and I used it to write like my DMC colors and my fabric info. Like on the cardboard, like I did up here. That's written in this pen. I have these, I had these anyway. They're left over from my watercolor days because they are permanent. And so what you can do, like for example, I'll show you one because I actually used it on one of these watercolor pieces. So like these bees, for example, I drew those in first with my Micron pen, and then I watercolored over them. So it doesn't smear. It's what artists use when they have to use multiple material, kind of different mediums of paint over a drawing or something, because it doesn't smear the drawing. Let me see if I used it anywhere else, and I can show it. It's the same thing I did here for this one. So all this ink stuff, I drew the leaves in, and then I watercolored over it. And actually these white spaces here, see how they're perfect lines? That was washi tape. You lay down very skinny washi tape before you paint it. So then you paint over the washi tape, and then when it dries fully, you peel up the washi tape, and everything that wasn't, covered by washi tape isn't painted. So it just creates some interesting like little spaces and separations in your artwork. So yeah, I think that might be everything I've got to show you. I wrote some stuff down. Let me just make sure I didn't forget anything that I want to tell you about. If you have a chance, like if you have, I know your Thanksgiving holiday is probably already filled up with plans, but maybe in December when you're over your holidays, or anytime when you have a vacation or time off, think about making yourself a little journal, because it was such a satisfying project. You can make it about anything. You can, like, if you want to do it eventually, you could start gathering materials right now. Just kind of keep your eyes peeled for anything that, I could cut that out and put it in a journal. Because once you start looking that way, like imagine going to the thrift store with a journal, a cross-stitch journal in mind. It will open your eyes to all kinds of different materials you could use. And then I'm like I said, I'm going to list the materials that I use in particular down below, just in case you want to check them out and see what it's all about. But if you have questions or want to know anything more about it, let me know. I'm happy to share. That's all I've got for you. I'm gonna record this weekend my usual monthly Flosstube check-in. So I'm gonna see you all real soon. If you're here, thank you for listening. And like I said, leave me any comments or questions. And thank you for visiting and for hearing me out. Hope everyone has a good holiday, and I'll see you in a few days. Bye.